dyslexia, and I don't think everybody knows exactly what it is. So why don't you tell us?
It describes children who have trouble with reading, writing, spelling, math, all kinds of issues that impede their learning in school. Um, Most all of them with dyslexia have a problem with processing speech, which helps or delays their ability to attach sounds to letters, to put letters together to make a word, and to remember that word. There are all kinds of difficulties with that. However, it is not a matter of IQ. In fact, you can't even be labeled dyslexic unless you have average to high intelligence. It's not they can't learn, it's that they need to learn in a different way. That's
If you have a
that's it in
lower,
a nutshell.
yeah, exactly. Like you said, it's a broad definition and a lengthy definition. You're just putting it into layman's terms for us. And I think that's important for the purpose of a conversation. And like you said, I guess if your IQ falls below a certain level, you don't have dyslexia. You have a developmental delay or a
You
challenge
have,
or something like
yes,
that.
something
So
else.
we know a lot of prominent actors have it, some politicians have it. I think Gavin Newsom of California says he's dyslexic. Is it that they see the words differently? Like if you're looking at a page, are the words literally scrambled or something like that?
Um, Not necessarily.
Hmm.
Some people with dyslexia have that issue. It's that they don't recognize whole words,
Mhm.
that they're not familiar enough with them because they haven't learned to sound them out as children. Um, they have other difficulties, such as sometimes following directions, but they compensate all of those learning difficulties with incredible abilities to do other things and to think in different ways.
Right. That's the thing about school. If you're a good robot, if you do everything you're told to do, if you sit there like a good student, good posture, take all of your notes, hand in your assignments on time, give back what the teacher wants, you're going to be an A student. But sometimes the people who think differently, like Steve Jobs or whomever you
Mhm.
might choose, are people who think differently.
Yes.
And they don't give you the answer you're expecting or the answer you necessarily want, but doesn't mean it's the wrong answer. So, talk to us a little bit about the creative potential amongst people who are diagnosed or might be afflicted with dyslexia.
Okay. Um, in adults, uh, many have pushed through school. They've learned to read, they've learned to write, but it's very slow. And they have learned that to compete with their peers, they have to take more time to do their assignments or their reading and etc. However, they don't have a problem with getting the information once they've learned how to decode the language, the written language. Um, Many of them think outside the box, like you were mentioning Steve Jobs. Uh, they're big picture thinkers, they're problem solvers. Many of them are hands-on learners, many engineers, even astronauts. We've had one astronaut who walked on the moon who had dyslexia. So it doesn't keep you from doing what you want, but you really have to persevere to do it. Back in 2018, there was an article in Time magazine about how the Fortune 500 companies are trying to recruit neurodivergent thinkers, dyslexia thinkers, autistic people, because they think differently and can often see solutions to problems that a regular team doesn't see. So um, they're very creative artistically, musically. Many athletes, really super athletes, have dyslexia. Um, Architects who like to design and build 3D things. Um, just there's a plethora of occupations that people with dyslexia pursue and do very well in.
Yeah. So I guess it's a matter of figuring out what the child or learners' strengths are. You know, okay, never going to be a quick reader, never going to be a fast reader, but might be an amazing engineer or might be an amazing, designer. So how do schools do, like we mentioned before, are kind of cut out for like that one type of student, not for people who think differently or act differently or need to learn differently. So how do we help people who do learn differently and do have differing abilities?
Ah, that's the $64,000 question.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
do give some suggestions at the end of my book about ways that teachers and parents might think about infusing their skills and talents and thinking abilities into whatever it is they have to learn. That is a lot of trouble for the normal teacher or the parent that doesn't understand what's going on. Um, but infusing things like technology and math and uh, dance and art and music and all of those things can be used to help children learn what they're supposed to be learning. And it does take training, additional training, but also the ability to have intensive intervention for just the literacy problem uh, in available in every school is really important.
What type of intensive intervention do they need? Once you figure out a child might be dyslexic, what type of intervention do they need?
It certainly depends on the child and what they've already learned.
Hmm.
Many of them need to go back to the very basics of what sound does this letter make, and what happens when you put this letter and this letter and this letter together. How do you figure out what the word is? Going back to decoding just by sounds, that's a big deal. And sometimes I've tested students in fifth grade who can't do that. They can't rhyme. They can't, uh, yeah, that's a big thing. Um,
Amazing. It's interesting too that I think Columbia University, their college for teachers, at one point said phonics is not needed. We're not going to teach phonics anymore. And that turned out to be a
no,
huge
no.
mistake. That's the essential building blocks of reading, right? Phonics.
Yes, I was trained as a teacher back in the 80s
Mhm.
during whole language, and I learned very quickly as an elementary teacher that that wasn't going to work with the kids who really struggled. And so I had to go back to the basic phonics principles too, to help. One thing that parents and teachers need to know is that kids who have dyslexia can learn to read and write and spell, but it is going to take longer. They need much more practice. They need deliberate practice with someone, correcting them. Um, but they can learn. And the ones who have gone on into space have certainly learned how to do it.
Reading aloud help children who have dyslexia? Does that reinforce the words, the language, help them make sense of the codes? Basically, that's what letters are, codes in front of them.
Absolutely. To be able to succeed in high school and college, you need to have a large vocabulary. And we get that by wide reading or by listening to wide literature. And so, yes, that's really how many students make it through high school or make it through middle school is they use audio text. They use, yes, audio books.
I was going to ask you before, actually, is the digital age helping? Because, we have now the ability really to learn at our own pace. We can listen to lectures over and over again online. We can listen to audiobooks rather than reading them. So, how do you see the digital age helping students who are afflicted with dyslexia?
Often the digital text will have read aloud uh,
Like a
portions. So
hyperlink or something?
yeah,
Yeah.
you can choose to have them read aloud. I tested a young man who was a senior in college um, in his last semester, and he was just really curious about why he's always struggled with reading, but he had a 3.2 average, and He told me he had never cracked a textbook. In fact, he never bought one. He would get into study groups where they were talking about what they needed to learn, and he would get it that way. Or he would buy like the Cliff Notes for literature and just study them, study them. And he made it through. In fact, he went to law school, if you
Wow.
can believe that, and he is a practicing lawyer
Yeah.
to this day. I don't know how he read all that stuff in law school, but he did. So, yeah, it's very possible.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. Let's talk about your book. How is it structured? How do you envision using it? Is it for parents? Is it for educators? Is it for administrators? Is it for all of the above? So talk to us a little bit about your book.
Okay, it is for all of the above. Originally, I wrote it aimed at parents and teachers, but I think the public needs to understand dyslexia and people who think in a different way. Uh, we just need to be informed. So I start the book off with a story about an 11th grader who is this amazing kid, can take engines apart, put them back together. He's been on the football, baseball teams. He's uh, a great video game player, and he reads on a first grade level. So that's the beginning of the book. And then I talk about, so what is dyslexia? And I give that very long definition. And then I talk about how those of us who have been reading specialists, I've been a reading specialist since 1994, and I didn't know what I needed to do to help kids with dyslexia. I thought I knew everything, but I didn't. And so I give a brief history of how when dyslexia education came to Arkansas, the first people that were charged with figuring it out and teaching teachers were professors at universities like me. And so we all scrambled to do that. Um, and then I go into what I learned about these students after assessing over 130 students, and 88 of them turned out to have the characteristics of dyslexia. I noticed patterns and patterns of things they were good at, things they were interested in, things they had skills in. And that's how this book took off.
Do these, do people who are diagnosed with dyslexia tend to be more creative types?
Um, I would say, based on my experience, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Almost all of them like to draw
Right.
or make things with their hands. They uh, are, yes, I would say creative, into music, into drama, into uh, many of the arts.
Yeah. And when you interviewed those 88 students and adults with dyslexia, what surprised you most about what they shared?
It surprised me that they felt they were dumb. All the time through school, they could not figure out why they could not keep up with their peers, even though they were trying their hardest. And they knew they could learn. They just felt like something was wrong with them. And many were bullied, they were teased. And even the very successful CEOs that say they had dyslexia will tell you that they have terrible memories of their time in school. And so I think that was disheartening and a surprise to me.
School can be tough. School can be like Lord of the Flies, that's for sure. Particularly, from generations ago, I think school was especially hard. You, in the book, tell the story of a student named Zane who struggled with reading but displayed remarkable storytelling, mechanical, and problem-solving abilities. Talk to us a little bit about his story and why it was so important to include.
Um, yes, I love this kid. I on on first glance when he would come in, I always interviewed them by starting with, so what do you like to do? What are you good at? Tell me about things that you've been interested in. And then I go into the testing after that. But so with this kid, he just mesmerized me with his story. uh, and the things he can do and the things he'd been involved with. And I was thinking, this is your average, kid. And then when I tested him, I was so surprised to see that he could not read past first grade. Um, yeah, my heart broke for him, yet he did have that same, I don't understand what's wrong with me, but he had enough self-confidence in all the other things he could do that he was going to get through school somehow.
Amazing, amazing. Let me ask you this. Do you feel that in our age of screens, where we watch videos on our phones constantly, televisions, iPads, are we not reading enough? Are we not setting, is that part of the problem that people have alternate means of entertainment that they're not turning to a book at night to read? Or
Uh,
is that a separate issue, perhaps?
uh,
Or it
it's
might
a
be a separate issue that is on some levels intertwined also, right?
It is complicated.
Yeah,
Um, One thing that being on screens a lot does to us is it affects our reading stamina.
right.
We can't hang in there long enough to do a long read. In fact, if you get a post that's very long, lots of people just go to the next thing because they don't want to take the time to
Right.
read all that. Um, on the other hand,
Even with videos, people don't want a longer video. They want a short
that's right.
video they can watch in 8 seconds or 4 seconds and move to the next. So we're
Yes.
really developing like an ADHD society, right?
Yes. And
Yeah.
I am a voracious reader, but even I have noticed that my attention span is shorter
Yeah.
because of the time I spend on social media or other things. So I don't know what the hopeful, there is
Well,
hope, of course there is, but
there is hope. I think you got to put this away. I mean, because it is so stimulating to see, visual of, cars exploding, people fighting, great looking people, whatever it is, all on your phone at a dizzying pace. Now to sit down with James Joyce and try to figure out what the heck he's trying to say, can be a challenge, that's for sure. Let's talk about how parents can spot early signs of dyslexia in their children. What should parents look for?
oh, early signs. You can notice things in the preschool age and even a little before by delayed speech, by problems following directions, by, for instance, in preschool, not being able to figure out the letters in their name, which is one of the big things we try to get them out of preschool knowing how to do. Um, there's a list in my book of several things, and I can't remember right offhand what they
Right.
are, but
But so
uh,
delayed speech is a telltale sign.
yeah, it can be,
It
yes,
can be, as well as the inability to recall the number letters in the child's own name and so forth. So if the
yes.
child's basically not hitting its milestones when it comes to reading and performing and speaking, that might be and something that you want to get your child into. Who do you bring your child to if you suspect a dyslexia? A doctor or I don't even know.
That's a good question. It depends on where you live.
Yeah.
Um, Now, in Arkansas, there's supposed to be one person in every school building who is trained to do the assessment for dyslexia. Um, and there should be one person at least in each school building who can provide the intervention for them. It usually doesn't start in kindergarten, unfortunately. Usually, sadly, it will sometimes wait till third grade when the child is so far behind, something's got to be done. So, having teachers and parents more aware of the signs, the difficulties, paying attention to what their children are saying about school and how they're feeling about how they're doing, uh, big red flags.
Absolutely. Early identification is critical to a child's long-term success, correct? Tell us why, if
Yes.
you would.
Yes, because your brain is more plastic in the
Hmm.
early years, and you can learn what you need to learn a little bit easier when you're 6
Yeah,
or 5 than you can when you're 11. So, yes, early identification, early intervention really, really helps. And every school district needs to understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. You argue that dyslexia should be viewed through the lens of neurodiversity. Talk
Yes.
to us about what that means and why that perspective is so important.
Well, just like in real life, people are not the same. We're not all the same. Our brains are not all the same. We don't all have the same experiences um, and schooling. So we have to appreciate differences in how people think and how people perform and how quickly or slowly they learn to accommodate them because everyone can learn and can be productive citizens and all of those good things we want for adults.
Absolutely. When you look at the successful people who have struggled with reading, who might have dyslexia, such as CEOs, engineers, artists, athletes, entrepreneurs, what can we learn from their achievements?
Perseverance.
Mhm.
They have a strong drive to do what they want to do. Perseverance, determination, I think, are the main qualities that I have seen and read about. Um, and having someone believe in them, a parent or teacher or some adult in their life, believe in them, tell them they can do whatever they put their mind to.
Such an important message. And I love the question that you first ask children when you're evaluating them. What are you good at?
Hmm.
Because just like your book implies, or more than implies, tells that we should focus on our children's strengths. You know,
Yes.
some might be great at math, some might be great readers, some might be great runners, some might just be funny. And, emotional intelligence can't be underestimated as well. I mean, the kid who is funny might have a more successful path in life than the kid who is good in math, depending on, what career path they take. So, talk to us about focusing on a child's strength and how it improves their confidence and self-image.
Well, the children who are encouraged to do what they're good at, for instance, building things, making things. This young man I told you went to law school, built a log cabin on his parents' property. He cut the trees down, he shaped the logs, he built the whole thing, and without a blueprint. I don't know how he did that either, but uh, other I have a nephew who has dyslexia, and it took him 6 years to get out of college, but he's an engineer for SpaceX now.
Oh,
Uh, it can, I think that just valuing different types of uh, ways of thinking, ways of being, is incredibly powerful.
I agree. I agree. You advocate integrating the arts and STEAM education into learning. Talk to us about why that approach is especially effective for kids with dyslexia.
Well, it's just like I was saying before, they need an outlet for what they are good at. And not just to show what they're good at, but to show what they know. So if you've been learning about I don't know, the American Revolution, and you build a diorama, or you build a cannon, or you build, or you write music, or you paint a picture, to show what you understand about that learning you were supposed to have. So many more kids can do that than just write it down on paper. I don't think that there's going to be an absence of paper pencil testing, but for those kids, they can get accommodations for more time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You've worked as a reading specialist, literacy consultant, university professor. Tell us the type of progress you've seen and how schools identify and support dyslexia, the changes and improvements that have taken place over the course of your career.
Oh, thank you. It's gone from 0 to 100. And at least in the state where I have been teaching in Arkansas, we started probably in 2015 at 0. And in the meantime, Many teachers have been trained to be aware and to be aware of dyslexia, what the signs are. Many teachers have been trained to be ones who can provide intervention. Principals have gotten on board. I would like to say that in every school it's blooming, but you know how it is. We do well in pockets. In pockets where poverty is high, it's much more difficult. We have more kids coming in who need help, and not enough people to give it. But there is hope on the horizon. It's getting better and better. I see it on social media more often. I see it in the news more about dyslexia awareness, and so we've come a long way in a short time.
Before we leave you today, let me ask you this. If every educator in America could take away just one lesson from your book, what would that be?
I think it would be the why we should change the way that we teach and encourage students with dyslexia. The why. This is not the how to do it. This is well, here's what we found out about these kids. They're amazing. So that's the why we should continue.
Wonderful. That is a great goal for educators, for parents, and very, very empowering to children who do learn differently. The name of the book we've been talking about today is called Help Them Learn with Their Strengths, Case Studies of Students with Dyslexia. It offers a powerful reminder that students with dyslexia are not defined by their challenges, but by their tremendous potential. Through research, real-life case studies, and decades of classroom experience, the doctor shows us how recognizing strengths can transform confidence, learning, and most of all, future success. Doctor, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time, your insight, your talent, and your dedication to education and learning. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until